Hey everyone, Beardo here with more modern age Batman books to share with you all. We are getting so close to the end of the modern age, people. I've actually only got 3 stacks of books left from Batman Volume 1 to share with you guys. That is insane. Like, we are so close. It's been a real crazy ride. I've really enjoyed kind of looking at all of these books as a whole and judging the entire modern age as sort of one big story. I think that's been really fun, and I hope that you guys have found it interesting as well and worth your time. There are many hours worth of video now that I've done for these, and anyway, I'm kind of proud. This has been a lot of fun on it. I'm glad that I've gotten good response, and I hope you enjoy the last stretch here. So, yesterday, we looked at R.I.P. At the end of R.I.P., Batman is left for dead. Now, there's some confusion going into Batman 682 if you're not reading the tie-ins, because Batman just so happens to still be alive in this. And the reason for that is this is basically just kind of a side story to Final Crisis, which is also written by Grant Morrison, and basically it just kind of tells of what's going on with Batman in Final Crisis. Now, most of Final Crisis, Batman is in sort of like this dream machine, but it's like extracting his memories and yada yada yada. Anyway, it's a bummer time for Batman during Final Crisis, and since we don't get a bridge in Final Crisis of how he survived R.I.P., and we don't get a bridge here, he's just kind of still kicking in 682. And if you aren't following everything in detail and aren't reading interviews with Grant Morrison explaining what the F he's doing, chances are this two-parter, 682, 683, you were probably, like me, very confused. Now, after Grant Morrison wrapped up with 683, this is actually going to be his last issue. Batman has died, basically again, in Final Crisis at this point, and the rest of the Last Right stories that are told are basically from tried and true Batman creators, sort of telling different aspects of the Caped Crusader's life, and different versions of it. You have a Hush story in 685 by Paul Dini. A lot of these crossed over with Detective Comics. You have Batman who's truly dead, and people are truly mourning him now at this point. And everything kind of, as I said last time, Grant Morrison really deconstructed Batman, and you had, the 3 ghosts of Batman, and blah, 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 blah. And then you have sort of a really nice bookend to that, and that whole idea with Neil Gaiman's Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, very much intended to sort of spin off in the same way as Action Comics and Superman did at the beginning of the modern age with Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And you basically have sort of Batman sort of seeing all of his existences and sort of this big sort of almost a family reunion of sorts for Batman, kind of, and of all of the sort of storylines and characters and everything that went into that. Kind of a nice little touching story. I don't think it's as effective as Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, but it is a good little 2-parter that crossed over with Detective Comics before basically the Batman title ended for 3 months, which now, especially in retrospect, it was unexpected at the time for me, and I was really upset by it. And even in retrospect, it kind of pisses me off. But yes, DC effectively stopped publishing Batman for 3 months. They pulled a Superman from after the death of Superman in the 90s, which, honestly, that was a lame stunt then. It's a lame stunt now. What do you do? So Batman was gone for May, June, and July. He finally came back in August with a new man under the cowl, because in the interim of this happening, we had Batman Battle for the Cowl. Now, with Batman dead, there are lots of different people invested in being Batman. You have Jason Todd, Azrael, Nightwing, and all these different people who think they're going to take up the cowl of Batman now that Bruce Wayne is dead. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video who's read comics in recent memory knows that, of course, Dick Grayson is the person who finally became Batman. Not the first time it's happened, I'm sure not the last time it will happen, but definitely one of the more extensive tellings. You had him take it over back in Prodigal, which we looked at probably a couple weeks ago. where he was clearly just filling in. You had in the 50s, we didn't talk about these, but in the 50s you had, and 60s maybe even, you had sort of old Batman looking on as Dick Grayson as sort of someone who would take on the cowl after him, and you'd have Batman and Robin 2 adventures, and it was like this alternate versions of Batman and Robin in which, ironically, Batman's son was Robin and Dick Grayson was Batman. But this is something different, because this is really, the new status quo. Dick Grayson is going to be Batman for a while. And in the first story arc, you had, I thought, a pretty good attempt at Judd Winick to kind of set up the new status quo. Obviously, I really enjoyed Judd Winick's run way back with the return of Jason Todd, and this was kind of it was nice to have him back, even though it was just for this sort of limited series in which Batman just sort of fought some random rogues galleries, more or less. I think he definitely fought Two-Face, as you can see on the cover for 691. Now, in the meantime, you had Batman and Robin launching, which it was Grant Morrison's new Batman title, in which Dick Grayson was Batman, Damian is Robin. Very, very successful, very, very quality title. We won't be going over that in these videos, obviously, but it is very good. I recommend it. You had Detective Comics was doing Batwoman at the time, doing Batwoman Elegy, which is, of course, a classic already. So there was that going on. There was lots of really interesting things going on with Batman. And everything had a really, really clear direction. But, and the thing you're going to see in these next videos, and this is a big but, and I told you last video I was going to talk about this as part of the fallout of R.I.P., is that the only book that didn't seem to have direction, unfortunately, was the actual Batman title. And that is really a head-scratcher. Now, tomorrow's video, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into that question, and we'll look at some of the reasons why I felt like Batman, the actual Batman title, didn't have any direction. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be back tomorrow.